We went from being God neutral to being God hating. Generally speaking, the culture shifted to now where being godly is square and old fashioned, out of date, and stale and bad. And the self, the me, completely took over.
We see that even in America and most other countries, it all just becomes a big game and a big show, and it's about power plays and a whole bunch of conversations behind the scenes. It's not about justice anymore. So it's very concerning, because you are right. We are in a culture war, and it's culture which is absolutely not really defining the direction in which we move. And this is one of the reasons why I reverted to Islam, because I feel like the Islamic culture is the strongest. You feel the culture.
I was
wondering. You feel it.
I'm curious. He said he reverted to Islam, but didn't he convert to Islam? Because she says he was a Christian, and I've heard him say that for years he was a Christian, and that he gives money every month to his Romanian local Catholic church. Can somebody maybe help me clarify that?
And you know, I definitely do not know enough about the Islamic faith to sit here and debate you on it. Yeah. I'm never a person that will debate somebody on something that I'm not an expertise on.
Yeah.
But I will say that I'm sad that you're not a Christian anymore, because I can sense, perhaps it's because you felt that Christians weren't doing a good job defending their beliefs.
Yeah, I think that God should be feared.
So one of the things that a lot of people don't understand when we say in popular culture, when you say God is to be feared, it does mean that you should be a little afraid of God, because God has set out some rules for us where there are some major consequences if we don't follow them. But fear is also has a second definition, and that's about reverence and respect. For me, it makes it a lot lighter. When I learned that, you know, growing up Catholic, it was all just be afraid of God. And it was all about guilt. You know, just if you're not doing something, you should feel doing something right. You should feel really guilty. Every sin you have, you should feel really guilty about. And I think that there's some value in that, and feeling bad about sin, and feeling like, you know, you need to go to God and say you're sorry. But once I understand that it meant reverence, it changed my relationship with God. Now, I'm a Christian, you know that, and I've really gone deeper into my Christianity over the past couple of years. But in doing this YouTube channel, I've learned so much about Islam. And so I love when he talks about it, because I can see in Andrew Tate this maturing. Not that he wasn't, he's a full-grown man. Not that he wasn't mature at all before, but there really is a more measured tone to everything he says these days. And it's not just because he's being careful because he's in a lawsuit. You can see in the words he's saying and the way he's saying them that he's becoming more and more a man of God, that his going deep into the Quran is really having a deep effect on his character. And it's pretty cool. And I see that with Christians that really go deep. They just become better and better people. It's so wonderful what God can do.
I believe that God should be feared. I fear God. Mm-hmm. It's one of the only things I fear. And I believe that also you see God to a degree, or you see religion, how you see yourself. And I see myself as a person of strong principles and strong morals. And I like to think of myself as the kind of person nobody really wants to cross. Not because I'm a psycho, but because I'm a man of capability, and I'm smart and I'm strong, and nobody wants to make an enemy of me. So I feel like I find an affinity to a belief system which has very similar outlooks. And there's a whole bunch of other things I can say from the Quran and Islamic texts, etc. But to keep it very vague and very broad for people who are not Islamic, I felt God when I was in an Islamic country. If I went to an Islamic country,
that's the problem.
I felt God. You don't feel any God. How is it a Christian country if Satanists are mocking Jesus on the streets?
I understand what you're saying, and
I think here's where I disagree with him. So I haven't been to a country where religion is first, at least not in a very long time. But I can tell you that you can feel God anywhere, absolutely anywhere. If you have a connection and you believe and you talk to God, he's right there whenever. You know, I feel God at so many different points in the day, when I get an answer to a prayer, or when I'm listening to a worship song that just hits me right. I feel something that's completely inexplicable and incomparable to anything else that has ever happened in my life, good or bad. And I hate that, you know, he thinks that there's no God here in America. No, in American pop culture, God, they will like you to believe that God is dead, or God doesn't exist, or that anyone who believes in God is a square and is boring. But the reality is there are so many of us here that do believe in God. We're just quiet about it. We're just sitting back and we're living our lives, doing our best to be godly. Many of us are failing often, say it all the time, fail 100 times a day. And that's okay, as long as I keep trying. So I feel sad, though, that he feels that disconnected from a place that he has, heritage, roots in his heritage.
I was trying to gather in my head what pulled him away from Christianity. And I said it's probably the example. If you're thinking that America is a Christian country and you're thinking that the United Kingdom is a Christian country,
They're not.
going, Christianity is getting it wrong.
Yeah.
And the truth is that America is no longer a Christian country. We're being run by people that are satanic. Hollywood is satanic, and Hollywood is running America.
Right.
So you're not wrong. But I think that right now America is facing a spiritual battle. And for the first time in a very long time, Christians are starting to stand up and speak about our principles.
I hope so.
And I could have used you as a star.
Yes, we could have used a Tate warrior in Christianity, in American Christianity. No question about that. I totally agree with her. But she kind of contradicted herself. She's like, America is no longer a Christian country. And then she said all the reasons for that. But then she turned around and said, but Christians in America are finally starting to stand up. And I agree with both of her statements. They can both be true at the same time. We really are in a spiritual battle where he started. We're in a cultural war. And this is where I keep coming back to. We need the Christians and the Muslims who are just sitting back and watching the country burn to come together and stand up together against this. We have to stick together here in America. And I get a lot of messages from people around the world who say, I can't believe what's happening to America. I'm so sorry for you. They feel bad for us. And, quite frankly, I appreciate that, because there is some pity that I could see why they would have that for us. You're watching something that you once admired burn and go completely off the rails. It's got to be hard to watch. And yeah, it is hard here internally. But again, I make sure to spend time in places and with people in America who are sane, most people that I talk to are not on board with all these crazy agendas that, as Candace says, are satanic. And I don't see, you'll see an occasional Muslim person in this pop culture world acting like a fool. And that's just somebody that's lost. That is so rare. So where are the rest of the Muslims? They're like the good Christians, the ones that are just staying home, living their life, staying in their lane. And we got to get out. We got to get out together. I don't know what the answer is. I keep saying this. And, I'm working on a project where I'm trying to pull some people together. And I'm looking for the right people in both the Christian and the Muslim community to work together. So we can do this. But it also takes the masses. You can't just have a couple of leaders, yammering away. They have to have support. All us regular people need to get together, because, I'm just one of the regular people who now just doesn't care if I get canceled.
I know. But I have seen in California, I've seen Christians and Muslims get side by side when they were complaining about the LGBT.
I did see that.
Schools.
That was a really great instance of seeing those people come together. But what happened to them? Like, where did that go? That was just a blip in the screen. Needs to be bigger.
It's almost like when I go to an Islamic country, I feel God around. You see it. You see it in the way the people are dressed. You see it in the fact that everyone's in a family. You see it in the fact that there's a mosque on every corner. It's in the air. And it's almost like when I'm in Dubai and I'm talking to my friends, my Islamic friends, and I explain to them the things you have to protect your child from in an American school. They literally think I'm lying. They're like, no, surely.
So it used to be like that here in America. So there was this essay, forgive me, I can't remember the man's last name. It's Aaron something. And it is on the 3 waves of evangelism. And I just heard about this in church on Sunday. So the 3 waves of evangelism. So it used to be, so prior to 1992, it was normal for everybody. It was normal. Everybody was a Christian. Going to church was commonplace. God was just the norm here in America. Then and if somebody wasn't going to church, or they weren't in any sort of godly community, they were like, you'd look at them and be like, what are they doing over there? What's happening with them? Wonder what they're following. But then around 1992 to around 2005, there became this neutral zone. Went from normal to neutrality. So America shifted into this God neutral place. where we started to abandon God and church became less important. And I can see like little things like, the way every single store was open on a Sunday. When I was growing up, not all the stores were open on a Sunday. Kids' sports were taking place on Sundays, where that used to be strictly a family day. So all these other things started grabbing people's attention, and everybody wanted to make sure their kid didn't miss the sport because everybody's kid's going to be in the NBA, right? Yeah. So we took on this like massive, replacing God with the self and with personal aspirations and with what I want to do. And that happened for about 20 years there. And then after 2005, we went from being God neutral to being God hating. Now, not all of us, obviously, but generally speaking, the culture shifted to now where being godly is square and old-fashioned, out of date, and stale and bad. And the self, the me, completely took over. So this is a relatively new phenomenon here in America, and we can see how it's working out. Do I need to even say anything else about that?
Mind-bending to them.
What about African countries that are Christian?
Okay, so yeah, this is interesting. So
yeah, they still are mind blown by the concept of what we're fighting in America. So America is unique. We shouldn't say that this is the blanket.
You're right.
Yeah, and even here in America, there are people who are mind blown by what's going on. Just look, I sit down and I talk with my mother's friends. She's 83. So all of her friends, her friend group is, the oldest one in her friend group just turned 90. And the younger people in her friend group are like in their late 60s. So there's this like 20, 25 year gap in them. And they are all horrified by what's going on in our country. They can't believe it. And then there's Gen X. And there's at least half of us who are horrified. The other half who are like, oh gosh, did I vote for this? Half horrified. So, we're not lost completely. But again, we need more God, because that seems to be the main one thing that was replaced with selfishness.
You're right. They're right. There are Christian countries which still take Christianity.
And they're like, what do you mean men can be women? Like, they think you're crazy.
And we're in Romania. And Romania is a country which is very conservative and very Christian.
Very Christian.
And they don't buy into any of this garbage either.
None of it.
So this is absolutely not true. It's unfair to say all Christian countries are like that.
America is an exception and not in a good way.
Yeah. I think like the whole West is, unfortunately.
The West is, I've said on my show the entire time, the West is falling. The fact that we're even having these debates is not good.
Yeah. The West has fallen, and unfortunately...
Russia.
Yeah.
Christian country.
Yeah, absolutely. A very Christian country. So yeah, you are right. But I felt an affinity to Islam. I felt God in the air, and it's difficult for me to explain any other way.
Okay, that's fair enough. I won't push you any further on that.
I don't think the West has totally fallen. I think we just haven't fully woken up yet. The sleeping giant that is within us, because I don't believe that the evil is going to overcome the good in this country and in the West in general. But we need help. I'm not going to lie. We need people like these guys, and we need the average Joes coming around and, looking at the neighbor who's lost and saying, hey, there's a better way. Come to my mosque, come to church with me on Sunday. I'm a Christian, that's my jam. But a lot of people here online are constantly, I think it's called dawa, where it's sort of an invitation to accept Islam. And I appreciate the invitation, and I admire how many people in the Islamic community are just bold about it and saying, this saved my life, this changed my life, this keeps my life on track, this keeps my family whole, and you should try it. And not as many Christians do that. And I can tell you, when I talk to people about my Christianity, over the past 30, 40 years, there's become this just general talk here in America. Oh, crazy Jesus, she's a Jesus freak. Oh, please, you're going to talk about Jesus again? Oh, God, here comes the Bible thumper. I mean, it's crazy to even have a casual conversation. And they've told us not to talk about politics and religion. So you can't talk about religion in America because people they say they get offended. But really, they don't want to talk about anything but themselves. And that's a disease that we have to cure in our culture because people are unhappy. Depression is at an all-time high. We've got fentanyl deaths, drug overdoses, even people just operating really well, it looks like, in their life, but they're addicted to pills or alcohol, high divorce rates, people growing old alone because they've been told that marriage is bad, and women have been told that marriage is oppressive, so they're at home with their cats instead. I mean, what are we doing? It's not working. We got to open up the conversation, bring God back. Yeah, we don't need to bring sexy back. We got way too much sexy going on out there. We need to bring God back. Anyway, thank you to my Muslim friends who are being bold, and to my Christian friends. Let's be bold. Let's do it together. All right, this was really fun. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace out.